Just
Welcome to your awakening. Please take calm as your reality is adjusted.
Hello folks, and welcome. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I say that every week, I don't know. It's going to be the new intro. I hope you can hear me. Yes, hopefully you can hear me. I've been told loud and clear. Yes, thank you. Hello, welcome. This is Virtual Shamanizing with me, the Hairy Cookie Monster. The Flipping the Pyramid website is down at the moment for major overhauling and rebuilding and putting sparkly bits on it. Loads of good stuff. But it means we don't have usual chat room. There is a live chat feature on the Caster broadcasting page, ftpradio.caster.fm. Go to that page to listen to the live broadcast if you're not there already. Yeah, I think you probably are. But yeah, there's a live chat option on there. Not so sure how well it works, but we'll see. People are just sending me loads of numbers now. Why are you sending me loads of numbers? Yeah, I'm not going to fall for that one. You told me loud and clear. That's all I needed to hear. Right, okay. Yes, hello, welcome. It is the 16th of the 5th, 2013. Yeah, 16th of May. Where should we go? Where should we go? Where should we go? If you tolerate this, your children will be next. Manic Street Preachers. There's a few stories. I will link them in the chat room, hopefully, if the links work. I'm not 100% sure if they will work in this live chat room, but we will try it and find out. And see how we go from there. And yes, I will, as usual, meander round some subjects while attempting to steer roughly in the same direction. I will tack towards it, let's put it that way. Yeah, we will be back on that ocean again. But let me just try multitasking. I want to try it. Let's see if this will work in that chat box function thing. Click more. Does it actually give you a clickable link? No, it doesn't make it a clickable link, but you can just copy and paste it and open it for yourself if you want to. I had to mention this. I feel like I felt I had to, just simply because I felt I had to. Maybe it was something to do with feeling, and yeah, we will carry on from that point. Exposing breasts. You ever thought about the fact that her name is like Happy Angel? Angel in a Jolly. Happy Angel. I'm not sure she is. She's such the ultimate Barbie archetype. I know there's lots of other of the deluded celebrities out there like to think that they are Barbie or style themselves after that brain manipulation tool, but I feel in terms of the whole concept that is represented by her, that Angelina Jolie fits that more readily. Can I say? I can say it because I'm going to say it. Coney boobs. Coney 2012. Coney boobs. Phony boobs. Is she having them removed? Are they cheating and not really doing it? And then they're going to say that she's had fake ones, but they'll look exactly the same as the original ones she had. It's just, yeah. But the link I put in the chat room. For those of you that can't see the chat room, I'll read it out for you. This was a YouTube upload from the Health Ranger, I believe, so as I remember. Angelina Jolie wants women to mutilate themselves for breast cancer they don't have. Yeah, search for that on YouTube or look for it on Health Ranger's channel. Okay, on YouTube again, obviously, but yeah, you can look for it on his channel. That's all I really want to say about. I didn't want to say anything at all about it when I saw it in the headlines. But after thinking about it a bit and listening to a few people talking about it, and this one in particular, yeah, it is, unfortunately, it's one of those situations where they want the publicity, obviously, but the subject matter is so important to try and get across to people that you end up having to mention it. I'm trying to avoid the media circus, the PR campaign, etc., that they are trying to do to people. But unfortunately, I need to mention it to point that out. So, therefore, of course, it's that catch-22 situation. They still get the publicity they want. That publicity will work on a certain amount of the populace. I don't want to get too disparaging. The herd, the mass consciousness. Yeah, it'll have an effect. It'll have the desired effect on a large portion of them. So we end up having to talk about it to try and point out that deception to people. Yeah. Oh, my finger might at some point break, so I better cut it off now, just to get it out of the way, so that then I can never suffer from a broken finger. It's just insanity. Yeah. Insanity to feed the big pharma industry, chemo pharma. Like I said, coney boobs, phony boobs. Yeah, for me, in that odd way that my brain makes odd connections as well. The CIA agent being arrested in Russia, and he was equipped with a blonde wig. Really, if you look at the pictures, it's a really bad blonde wig as well. What is going on here? Is this some kind of pantomime or something? Oh, hang on a minute. Yeah, it is, isn't it? Unfortunately, it's a pantomime where real people die. Real people suffer horrifically at the hands of these people playing these ridiculous power games. So yeah, that's all I want to mention about that one. Yeah, whatever. Move away from the boobs. Yeah. Another one I'm talking in general about, like, just news stuff I've seen over the week and whatever, and it will eventually develop into a thread. Believe me, it will. You must believe. You must believe. You must want to believe. I'm pretty certain the usual suspects I can see in the chat room. You've probably seen this already. This was a video, again on YouTube. I've been trying to catch up on a lot of the YouTube that I've missed recently because I've been busy doing other stuff. So I've been absorbing a lot of YouTube recently. But one I watched just the other day, this is from Sam, find him. His channel is S Williamism as one word. So S William and ISM to finish it off, so you get S Williamism. Yeah, find him on YouTube. He put up this video. The name of it is Bilderberg 2013 Visiting the Grove. He's got a great amount of traffic off that, which I think is wonderful. As part of why I wanted to yet again punt it forwards, add a bit of energy to it, spread it a bit further. If you haven't heard of it or seen it, go and watch it. If you have any interest or intent to be involved in activism or protesting, even just for your own personal empowerment knowledge of how to deal with the fancy dress authoritars, I think I'll rename them, yeah, the fancy dress authoritars, when you encounter them, and that is, I'm presuming here that you're encountering them when you are about your lawful day-to-day business. You're not doing anything untoward. You're not causing harm or loss to anyone else, and you get what's the word for it? Interceded by the fancy dress authorities, and they ask you lots of leading questions in an attempt to entrap you in a word game. A word game of power is basically what it comes down to, and whether you have the power or they have the power. It's always struck, well, I shouldn't say always, but for a long time it struck me as somewhat just befuddling, that's a good word, befuddling, that this person who has, back in the day when I was a youth, they would have a big stick with which they could beat you round the head with, you know, the good old traditional truncheon. It was later on in my life when they started having things like pepper spray and then tasers, etc., etc. But no, there's this person standing there and he's got this big length of wood that if he wants to, if he decides to, he can start threatening you and beating you with this length of wood. So playing this whole word game seems a bit defunct to me. It's like, look, right, I can see instantly by the fact that you have this big length of wood strapped to your side or in your truncheon pocket or whatever. Is that a truncheon in your pocket, officer? Because I can see it on your person, I automatically know that you have the ability to resort to that if you choose to. So why are we playing this word game? But that's what they do. Yes, anyway. Sam went to do a little tour, a video tour, around the Grove in Watford, which is the location for the upcoming Bilderberg meeting. And that's a whole big, massive subject for you to get into in and of itself, and links into so much other stuff. Yeah, you've got to check that out for yourself if you haven't already. And some of what Sam talks about will lead you along those lines if you need some pointers. But really the main content of his video comes down to his encounter with those fancy dress authorities, the enforcers, the wearers of the state crown and the carriers of the stick. And I thought he did a fantastic job of trying to interact with them in an open and human fashion. You know, please put aside any caveats to do with the words that I'm using. Word magic, exactly. Yeah, trying to interact with them as just an honest human, one person to another. See, there's another word, ooh, dangerous. And how he they attempt to extract information out of him, all but to the point of literally saying papers please. They try every little word trick. Well, I shouldn't say every little word trick. I'm sure there's people out there who could think of other ways that they could have phrased their questions or approached their questions, etc. But they attempt to cajole and trick Sam into giving them details that they don't really have any right to know. And like I say, it's fantastic the way he interacts with them and deals with them, and it's certainly, I feel, a worthwhile instructional video to watch from both sides of the argument. The two coppers he meets in the patrol car, they were nice, for want of a better word. They did at least not accost him physically. They gave him a chance to speak his piece, etc. They didn't get shirty with him or anything like that. Watch it for yourself. But as another note in relevance to the Watford event, the Bilderberg meeting, take note of the fact that there were, I can't say they were not in full uniform. I'm sure that they could legally argue that he had some form of uniform on. But Sam's first encounter with an enforcer was with somebody who's not in any normally recognisable uniform, and the questions and the way he asks it would, I think, make anybody feel uncomfortable and suspicious of why is this big bloke come up to me and started asking me these questions the way he's asking me. Yes, yes, it's pretty obvious, it's a given that with this meeting coming up, and of course the Google event just before it, preceding it, will they merge the two together? Possibly swing door, I think, maybe, revolving door from one event into the next, and yes, maybe. Yes, inevitably there obviously will be a security setup going on, and people like that will be there wandering around the grounds, keeping an eye on the grounds, and you, if you happen to be walking through like Sam was, it was open, there was a public thoroughfare through those grounds, and he took advantage of that to go and do some filming and talk about the place, etc. Something I haven't further investigated for myself yet, it may be just Captain Obvious here asking this, or pointing this out, or asking this kind of question. The Grove. Why is it called the Grove? Groves have a particular history and meaning. This place is called the Grove. Its symbology and its layout seem quite indicative to me of matching the criteria for that kind of meeting that has occultic overtones to it. Yeah, Bohemian Grove, the Grove. Obviously, as I say, I haven't done any kind of deep research into this. I'm speaking off the top of my head. This is unscripted, no auto cues here. But it does make me question. Like I say, it may just be a Captain Obvious question. I'm sure people living in that area probably know it quite well, etc. Sam does as well take note of other locations on his route that would also make anybody with a knowledge of that kind of subject question. The road names and such like. Yes, that area definitely, to me, probably has a quite ancient history and relevance for those occultic reasons. And it's called the Grove. Strokey beard. Yes. Other stuff in the news. Yeah, go and watch that if you haven't. About half an hour long. Spend the half an hour. It's worth it. If you're interested in that kind of stuff. Stop caveating yourself. Get on with it. I'm going to jump to more, gotta say, unpleasant stuff. Unpleasant information. But, the Bilderberg meeting. Who are the people who turn up at the Bilderberg meeting, and what is it that they do there? That's the big question, isn't it? Or questions for the pedants out there. It's fairly obvious with a little bit of cursory investigation that the people who go there are quite powerful in one way or another. Either they're very wealthy, or they're in positions of political power, etc., etc. Yeah, they're the movers and the shakers, the string pullers, the button pushers, and they meet up at these meetings and talk about what? Is it just a supper club? I don't think so. And the decisions, or they would say that they don't make any decisions, but they don't have to make the decisions there on the spot. They just have conversations about possibilities, and a nod and a wink, and a nod's as good as a wink to a blind bat. And then off away they go to their little departments back home and enact upon those discussions and chats and nods and winks. And what they enact upon then has a trickle-down effect on the rest of us poor lowly peasants and serfs and plebes and proles, whatever you want to call it, the general populace, we end up having to put up with the shit that dribbles down from the top of their pyramid. A topic I covered months ago, talking about the economic crisis as it has spread from the Mediterranean. It might not necessarily have started or originated in the Mediterranean, but the situation in Greece, Mediterranean, was the initial extreme of it starting to grow, and that's gradually spread northwards, and along with it came what has now unfortunately been rightly termed economic suicides, and these have generally followed a pattern in the sense of, as the economic crisis has gradually spread through Europe and has got deeper and deeper and deeper, the number of suicides that are attributed to these kind of reasons have grown. And part of the exampled protest suicides, using my words carefully because I'm trying to describe what are the most extreme cries for help. Almost always, people who commit suicide are usually, and I don't want to generalise too much, but are usually crying for help. It's usually the last desperate act of somebody who just needs some help. And one of those protest style suicides is the use of fire, the use of immolating, self-immolation, the setting oneself on fire. This has got an older psychosocial association, almost a totemic association culturally for some cultures. For example, as demonstrated in the Tibetan struggle for independence, the number of Buddhist monks and nuns that have killed themselves by setting themselves on fire is now in the hundreds, and that kind of ultimate protest, because that's what it comes down to, certainly in the case of the Tibetan protests, the Buddhist monk suicides, that is done as an act of protest. For the people in Europe, it is taken on a new form of extreme desperation. I'll put a link in the chat room. It is quite a long one. This article on the Daily Mail, I'll just open it up in a tab so I can read you the title properly rather than just the short form off the URL. Find it at dailymail.co.uk. That one I've just linked was the prior one. So it was: grandmother driven to suicide by the bedroom tax. Unemployed woman 53 hit by £20 a week charge dies after leaving note saying the government was to blame. This was another link that I was going to give you after this one. That's me jumping ahead in my notes. But the other link, copy and pasting more quicker, I'll put in the chat room as well. Again, I say most people may very well have already seen this one. This one was on the Telegraph, telegraph.co.uk. Man set himself on fire after being pursued by loan sharks. Now, in both cases, we could debate till the cows come home. Most likely that is what it probably will happen in terms of the moral outrage media circus that will be whipped up over these subjects, over these stories in particular. We could debate till the cows come home whether it was, for Stephanie Bottrell, was it the £20 a week charge that pushed her over the edge, or was there a lot of other things going on in life that led her to decide that that was what she wanted to do? Yeah, as I say, being careful to not generalise, because in terms of suicide, it is always, or almost always, relative, and everybody who takes their own life has had slightly differing reasons of why they're doing it. You know, it's relative to them, their life experience, and what they felt were the stressors that have pushed them to the point of not being able to cope anymore. As I say, I covered this topic at least going back a few months, easily back into last year and the prior year, when we were talking about how the economic crisis will spread. Don't believe them saying that it's been contained to Greece, all this kind of. This is just going to carry on, and it will gradually drop level by level by level. And as well as I discussed before, these protest suicides will start becoming more and more extreme, until even here you will see self-immolation. And it wasn't a topic that I really wanted to go over, because I'm not a believer in the what you focus on grows type thing. Yes, it grows, but just because you ignore something, it doesn't mean it goes away. You know, I don't like that whole what I feel is a mental trap of classically the New Age movement of, all you need to do is think nice thoughts, just think nice thoughts, only look at nice things, don't look at the nasty stuff, etc. It doesn't work. It helps to have that positive energy, but you cannot ignore the negative. If you try and deny it, it will just get worse, it will fester and get worse, and eventually come banging on your door. As this economic crisis has spread, lo and behold, people are becoming more desperate and are pushed to the edge. And for those people that were already maybe going down that path already, maybe trying to deal with extreme depression, severe depression, or suicidal thoughts, and then this bureaucratic monster machine just starts chasing after them. It's the only way the way my imagery works in my head. I see it as a great beast pursuing people to eat them, to consume them. They keep telling us there's not enough money, but they've got enough money to have a pay rise. They've got enough money to give the Queen more money. They've got enough money to fund wars all over the place. The list goes on and on and on. The tax evasion scandals that are going on at the moment. The LIBOR scandal still isn't over and done with, and still hasn't really hit into the mainstream to the level that it should have. You're talking about the people that are at the root of controlling the economic systems of every nation on the planet. Maybe near enough, there might be one or two that slip through their net. But this little cadre, this cabal of banking owners in whatever country they are, whichever particular family they are, it doesn't matter, it's just all of them together as a big group, have deliberately fixed the rules in the house. They have been betting against you and winning hand over fist because they've got their hands on the little levers. And yet the mainstream media seems quite happy to have let that slide off the news cycle and let it vanish into the ether, such that it'll roll on for the couple of years it takes for these court cases to start going through, and by then everybody would have forgotten about it and nothing will really be done about it. If this so-called recession, which I have myself for a long time said it's no recession, it's a robbery, and I wholeheartedly agree with Chunky on that. This is not a recession, it has been a robbery from the beginning till now and ongoing. And the fact that people are just ignoring, forgetting about the LIBOR scandal and all those other intertwined threads of laundering money for drug gangs. Yeah, on and on and on it goes. But there's no money, folks. You've got to tighten your belts under this austerity until we get the green shoots growing. You've got to work harder. You've got to go without. You've got to live on less. You've got to cram more of you all into one house. You've got to fight for the jobs that are available, for minimum wage, where you have to sign away any work rights that were won over the last century, all out the window. So mainly, there's not really a lot more I can say on that. As I said, yes, debatable as to whether there were already ongoing situations with both these people that led them to be tipped over the edge by whatever particular bit of bureaucracy it was that was hounding them. I could quite easily argue that the loan sharks are enabled by the current crony corporatist system that we're stuck with, so therefore it traces back to being their fault again. Even if the guy was being pursued by loan sharks rather than governmental agencies, those loan sharks exist because they have sown the seeds. They have put out a nice big swimming pool for them to swim in. And it just so happens that they've thrown all of us in there with them. Moving on from that, I'll give you another link in the chat room. This sort of leads it a bit more. As a pointer, let's put it that way, as a signpost, as a lighthouse away from that mainstream media mind manipulation. This is on the John Rappaport's blog. I'm waiting for browser to load quicker, thank you. johnrappaport.wordpress.com. What if television news disappeared and we invented ourselves? That's a little bit of a long read, ish. Take you 10 minutes to read, maybe 20 if you're a slow reader like me. I tend to try and read slowly. I don't like to skim read, not unless I'm really in a rush. Prefer to let the words soak in. Words magic. Yes, something I'll come back to. I'd leave you to read that at your leisure if you want to. As I say, a pointer, a signpost, a lighthouse to maybe, for those people out there that are still got that mainstream media hook stuck in their brain, stuck in their cerebellum, in their spirit. Yes, coney boobs, phony boobs. Yes, why should we care other than the potential for that androgynous, transhumanistic body dysmorphia agenda programming? You don't need your boobies anymore, ladies. You can be more empowered if you chop them off now. And I tell you what, by the way, you chop your feet off as well and have roller skates surgically attached. You can have them wired into your Google Glass so you can actually, run into stuff because you can't see where you're going. Yes, gallows humour, definitely. I wanted to just mention in passing more than anything, because I have still been watching this situation, keeping a tab on the info that's being discussed and coming out, etc. The Boston bombings, the marathon bombings, there's still quite a furious debate going on, and it seems to centre primarily around the whole actors meme still. There are those people that are investigating it from the point of view of it was most likely FBI, maybe with the help of the CIA or with the nudge, the nod and the wink from the CIA to lie hop it, to let it happen. but it was most likely the FBI's patsies that were set up and used for, there's several reasons that you could throw into that. But there are those people that are investigating it from that state conspiracy angle. But the primary opposition to that is the "it's all actors" meme angle. There's been a few things that I've seen recently that, yes, have made me take a sort of double take and stop and look. One of the main things being the large display screen that's in the background as the camera was viewing down the course from the finish line. It was looking down the course. This was when they televised the first explosion. It's looking down the course, and in one clip from earlier in the day, at the end of the race, when the first winners get there, in that clip there is a big view screen in the background on the side of one of the buildings. But later on in the day, when the actual bombings occurred, the big view screen is no longer there, which does obviously leave questions. And there's a few other little bits and bobs like that to do with the imagery, which, as I say, is still in furious debate. And there's various images that have come out that are purported to be the people who were supposedly actors, the crisis actors, etc., in the event. And people are doing comparisons of those photos. But it goes on. I'm still left with the question of if it was some kind of agency, then why would they risk using actors? If it truly was a terrorist group, then they wouldn't bother using all these actors, because they probably wouldn't even have the funding to do it. They wouldn't have the network to set it all up and enable it, and they wouldn't need to, because they're crazy terrorists, durka. They would just run in and blow things up, so why would they bother with actors? Which leaves you with the state-sponsored terrorist, false flag, etc. angle. And if it's them, why would they use actors? Because it's an immense security risk. Certainly in terms of the sheer number of people that would have to have been involved to pull it off in the fashion that the proponents of the actors theory are suggesting. Yeah, it goes on. I'm still watching it. I'm still sort of keeping tabs on that general discussion and trading of information. It does often fall back into belief systems and fundamentalism, all the usual stuff, but of course you're talking about subjects that have a lot of impact for people and their lives and the world we're living in, etc. So yeah, of course people get very wound up and heated and passionate about these subjects. So hopefully info, good resources and evidence will still keep trickling out and be figured out, will be researched out, and yes, ongoing. Sorry, I'm distracting myself looking at my notes. I'm going to come back to that bit. Right, I'm going to go on to this next bit where I want to play you a little audio clip, and I'll let it go on into some tunes after that. But I watched this the other day, yesterday, and I thought, thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. Finally, somebody saying it the way I felt it was as well. But yeah, anyway, distracting phone. So I will quickly distract from the microphone, and instead I will do what I said I was going to do, play some stuff so I can shut the phone up. I will be back in about 12 minutes.
Why don't we move on to the next comment? This one comes in via YouTube via the user Stormbringer, who writes, "Hi James, wondering if you know about opt-in. I'd like to know your thoughts." Thank you for the question, Stormbringer, and this is one that I've received from a number of people over the preceding several months since the One People's Public Trust really broke into public consciousness. So for people who don't know about opt-in, it is something that you could find more information out about at optin.com, or at least it used to be there. Apparently just in the last 24 hours or so, they've changed over to something called i-uv.com. So I don't really know, but just going from that website, which seems to be the official place for all things regarding the One People's Public Trust, you can read about what this is, and just reading a small section of this, it says, quote, using a series of legal actions and uniform commercial code registrations, the trustees of the One People's Public Trust served notices on the banks and corporate governments stating all unlawful and illegal claims of ownership and actions of management and control by their principals, agents, and beneficiaries were lawfully and legally duly cancelled and foreclosed upon by their own free will choice, not to remedy the damage they had caused. End quote. Again, you can go and read through this, and you can go and read the UCC filings, etc., that have been used in this case. And supposedly the takeaway from this is that because of some uniform commercial code filing that took place last year, now everyone is free, corporations have been disbanded, government tyranny has been ended once and for all, and we are now free human beings. And if you detect a note of, shall we say, sarcasm in my voice there, well, yes, it's because I think that this is a complete load of baloney, because it is one of the most fundamental and persuasive and just really dangerous lies. Because this lie is that somehow, because of a UCC filing in a courtroom halfway around the world via people that I've never met and probably never will in my life, I am now a free human being. We have now been freed from the shackles of corporate government tyranny. That is an insidious lie because it gets us to buy into the system. My freedom does not come from a courtroom. It does not come from a UCC filing. It has nothing whatsoever to do with that. My freedom comes from my inalienable human rights that are endowed by the very fact that I'm a human being and have been born into this world. They have nothing to do with the courtroom, and I have nothing to do with anyone that's trying to tell me that or to try to make some sort of legal wrangling about this. It's not legal. It's truly 100% about my absolutely inalienable human rights, and again, it has nothing to do with a courtroom, and I for one have nothing to do with opt-in and don't want anything to do with such a system. If there are people out there that need to be told that some courtroom filing has made them free and that in their mind suddenly makes them understand that they are free human beings, then good for them. I don't begrudge them that. If that's what they need, then I hope that works out for them. But for myself, I don't need anyone to come along with a courtroom filing to try to tell me that I'm a free human being.
And just to repeat the most relevant points.
The One People's Public Trust, a complete load of baloney, an insidious lie because it gets us to buy into the system. My freedom does not come from a courtroom. It does not come from a UCC filing. It has nothing whatsoever to do with that. My freedom comes from my inalienable human rights.
Hello folks, welcome back. Yes, that was a bit of loud energy, pick it up a little bit towards the end there deliberately, but also because it's some of the lyrical content, as you know, that's what I do. I try to pick songs that I feel are appropriate. Where was we? What did we have? We had Don't Take It Personal from MIDI Intellect, and Drain Me Slowly from Audio Slave. I've had a few Audio Slaves recently. I seem to be having an Audio Slave period again. But yes, lyrically, content, speaking about that legal system and that ocean of law, admiralty law, yes, maybe link that back into Sam's video of him interacting with the fancy dress authoritars. Yes, are they trying to drain you slowly? I think they are. They're throwing the net over you to try and drag you down into that ocean. Don't let them drag you down, leave a better world than you found. Yeah, start singing again. It will rain tomorrow. Oh yeah, that was something I forgot to mention, wasn't it? 4 X-class flares from the sun over the past few days, couple of days, 3 of them in one day. None of them were pushing the records, but there were certainly significant X-flares, and 4 of them in a row. All the ducks in a row. All the ducks are swimming on the water. And here in the UK, our weather has gone a bit beyond changeable. The weather in the UK is generally changeable. That's why it's quite a common topic of conversation. So what's the weather like today? I don't know. Stick your head out the window and find out. We had a few days of nice warm-ish weather. The sun was out and it was warmish, but there was still a bit of a chill. And now we've just gone back to craziness again. It's raining, the sun's out, it's freezing cold, it's snowing. What's going on? Oh. Yeah. So I forgot to mention the 4 X-flares. There you go. And I better explain why I played that bit at the beginning. That was a clip out of the latest Corbett report. And where is my window gone for that? Oh dear, I must have closed it while I was busy opening other stuff. I'll just reopen it so I can tell you the name of it properly. For those people that are just listening, can't see the chat room, the audio clip I played, yes, was from a video. Find it on Corbett Report channel from James Corbett. Can you speak Japanese? Questions for Corbett, number 005. It's one of a series he's been doing where he answers questions that people have sent in to him. And as you heard, the question he was asked was about the OPPT. And yes, I'm just happy, relieved, feeling a bit like I've had a pat on the head. I don't know, however you want to describe it. I'm just glad that there are other people out there that I know other people have done as well, but James Corbett gets quite a good viewership following his channel, so it makes me happy to know that more people will see that than will have listened to me. I know I've only got a small handful of you die-hard listeners, and maybe the occasional lost wanderer on Caster who thinks, oh, what's this? I'll listen to this, he sounds interesting. What the hell is some crazy hippie talking weirdness? So yeah, he's got a much greater reach, put it that way. And he's nicely, succinctly wrapped it up. That's why I deliberately clipped the audio again to repeat the most salient points, yes. But it also links into those lyrics, certainly the way Midi was singing about it, a bit more esoteric in the Audio Slave, because it goes beyond the legal definitions, talking about the great ocean, drown me slowly, etc, etc. Another link I'll drop in the chat room, and I will explain as well in a minute, because if I would suggest as well, listen to the whole of that Corbett report if you get the chance. He says some other sensible stuff in there about following particular channels or people, just some, in my opinion, make sure I slip that caveat in there. He gives some good general advice on how you should be going about looking at information. Yeah, just watch it when you get a chance. It's only like half an hour, spend half an hour watching something informational rather than just pure entertainment. But the other link I just dropped in the chat room to explain, to link into that, a lot of what James sort of mentions in there, in that particular audio clip as well, he talks about his inalienable rights. And if you look into the whole concept of legal versus lawful, and the way that whole admiralty system works, and the way that your straw man person is created and acted upon, etc, etc, and used to represent you, etc, etc, you see all this word magic, and again I'll tie that in further. later on. But if you look into that, you'll eventually get to also looking at natural law and what is natural law, what constitutes natural law. Because when you start whittling your way down through these rabbit holes, through these tunnels that they have deliberately put in your way, levels of complexity to distract and usurp your own power. I have the power. Away from your original connection to the everything, or divine if you see it in that way, or the physicality of everything if you're atheistic. But he talks about natural rights, so you'll eventually get to that point in your investigations. Like the other link, did I put it in the chat room? Forgetting what I'm doing now, I'm trying to multitask so much. Yes, I have already put it in the chat room. This is another video vlog, well, more video, informational video rather than a vlog. Oh no, I've linked the wrong thing. Hang on, do more quicker. You're a terrible multitask. I was supposed to have this licensed authoritative certificate to say I know how to click maces, and I'm failing on my mouse clicking here. I think I need to send that certificate back. Get a refund. Yeah, I don't think they'll be able to refund me the time for that. Yes, this is on Rockin' Mr. E channel. Find him on YouTube, GoTube. Rocking Mr. E with just the letter E, so Rocking M-R-E. Maybe a bit more academic than esoteric. As far as I remember, he does say he's an atheist, so he's not talking about this kind of subject matter from the divine connection, sovereignty, etc. kind of angle. He's looking at it from the philosophical angle of natural law and those inalienable rights that you are born with. Like I was talking about last week, just the sheer fact of your very existence comes along with rights. And yeah, we can get into semantic arguments over the definition of words, word magic, there it is again, here we go back round and round. But yes, that I feel is also worthwhile you watching. The name of the video is Human Rights Are Unnatural. Find it on Rockin' Mr. E channel. Human Rights Are Unnatural. In it, like I say, I like this guy because he does come from a very academic approach, and if you want that kind of perspective on this information or these topics, these kind of perspectives, then it's a good resource. I like the way he presents his stuff. It's nicely defined and concise and explained. He does it well. And yeah, he's a bit of a long-haired weirdo like me, so maybe I feel a bit of a affinity as well in that sense. But he's also an individualist, which I like to go back to. I'd rather hear people's individual points of view and expressions rather than the group thing. Yes, anyway, yeah, check that video out as well, in sort of flowing along from the link I gave you from Corbett report, and thinking along the lines of that legal versus lawful, and the kind of lyrics that Midi was expressing, talking about the usurpation, as I've talked about before myself, the usurpation of your sovereign rights, your inalienable rights by your very existence. Rockin' Mr. E talks about it in his video, the fact that if you actually, a lot of people don't ever bother. You will quite often hear people talk about like, I've got human rights, I've got human rights, they've been ratified in the EU, you can't breach my human rights. I can't do that, you're breaching my human rights, you can't do that to me, it's a breach of my human rights. If you go and actually look at these human rights, which you can find on the EU and the UN websites, you go and find them and you can actually read them for yourself. And yeah, it's long, boring legalese stuff. Again, word magic to capture your rights and take them away from you. Basically, is exactly what this word magic does. Old paper paradigm trickery again. We will take a metaphysical thing and we will encapsulate it onto a piece of paper and then say that gives us authority over you. It's a magic piece of paper. Yes, digressing, sorry. Yeah, if you actually go and look up the like UN Human Rights Charter and stuff like that, and you scroll down through most of it, and it is sort of towards I can't remember exactly what sub point it was, but there is a sub point eventually in these documents. I think it was Mike Rivero that first sort of mention this. Well, one of the first people I heard mention it a good while ago. Say like, go and look at this. It'll tell you blah blah blah. And it is literally the classical lawyer speak legalese caveat that says they have the right to change this whenever they wish. So basically, it's like you have the rights that I give you, is what that document does. So by claiming your human rights according to UN Charter or EU legality, etc., is basically saying that you give up your inalienable rights and you hand them over to this bureaucratic body who look after them for you and give them back to you by apportioned bits of paper. So this is classically the kind of stuff you'll find out about how the legal system works in terms of things like licenses. When you get licensed, you are basically handing over any natural, sovereign, inalienable right that you might have because of you existing in the first place. You hand it over to them and you say, look after this for me and lend it to me. And the license is your bit of registration to say that you have given it to them and they are lending it back to you. You know, that ties into so many different aspects of our everyday, day-to-day life. But people, because of the way those levels of complexity of legalese, and you must have a representative, a lawyer, a barrister, whatever, to do all this for you, because it's so complicated, you could never understand it yourself. And that's largely true if you try to understand their crap. But you can just bypass all their crap. Because, as far as I'm concerned, my opinion, but I find this holds true to the reality that I'm experiencing and that I can perceive and debate over. it just completely usurps your direct connection, your natural law, inalienable rights. And like I said, as James Corbett says it in his piece, it's somebody writing a bit of paper, etc., and saying they're giving it back to you is just nonsensical. It's baloney. Yeah. So watch them couple of videos maybe if you get the chance, if you get the time. I'm gonna next up I'm gonna mention something else first. Like I said, unscripted, no auto cue. I have to wait for my cerebellum to like kickstart itself. Yeah, get on with it. Yes, I was also going to mention the winding in of those threads, as I like to do. The ocean of the everything. Use those words carefully and loosely. Try and caveat from all angles to fit as many people as possible. You come into this existence as a vessel of the Holy Spirit, and if you're not religious, a vessel of the Promethean spark. And if you're not spiritual in any way whatsoever, then it is the quantum cascade of potentiality. There you go, covered from all angles, for the atheistic, for the spiritual, and for the religious. Your existence represents the birthing onto the ocean of another single point, a single droplet, a single singularity of expression, and that Admiralty law is the closest thing they can get to stick a wedge between you and that connection, to usurp that connection, and then convince you, delude you and convince you that by writing it down, by inscribing it, by ensorceling a metaphysical concept, a thought, onto a piece of paper, that gives them power over you, control over you. They wave a piece of paper in your face and you have to jump. Jump, monkey, jump. I'm going to play a couple of audios, a couple of songs I think that, as I do, I find appropriate for the moment, for the thread, and I'll come back to that word magic on the ocean. I will be back in 10 minutes. And welcome back. Hopefully you can still hear me okay. Nobody said not, so I'm presuming you can. It looks like it's running okay on my browser. It still says playing. Right, cool, thank you. Loud and clear. Too many windows open. First track I play, Ian Brown, FEAR, You Got the Fear, Fantastic Expectations, Amazing Revelations, and Akala, Find No Enemy. Both I thought were appropriate. Leading it in, continuing along that thread. How do they convince you they have power over you? Through fear. There's a little quote. Where's it gone? Let me find it. You can chain me, you can torture me, you can even destroy this body, but you will never imprison my mind. That's Mahatma Gandhi. I'll put this link in the chat room. Oh, multitask fail again. That was just a little quote I plucked from the bottom of this article. Find this on wakingtimes.com. The mind versus brain debate, brackets, what is consciousness, close brackets. A bit of a long article, longish, a few links in there, not as many as the other one I gave you, which was last week I think, but it is just sort of partly to continue that thread in a longer arc between episodes. The story arc is extending, but yeah, just to continue that as well, that connection to source, or like I say, if you're atheistic, just the mere fact that the energy has coalesced to cause your body to be existent. So you could see the mind, consciousness, body, brain debates, connections in that way if you wish to. If you don't, if you want to stick to atheistic point of view, but yes, as I say, it just sort of carries on that flow, and also it extends back to last week as well. But this sort of also in a loose segue links me into the other last little bit I wanted to talk about, and just sort of winding it down in that transmutation effect again, hopefully. I saw that this seemed to crop up a while ago, a couple of weeks ago at least. I had this thought bouncing around in my head, that I was, as I do, I have this habit of coming up with these ideas of doing things, and then I have so many different things I'm trying to do all at once, like Like juggling, just like the fool dancing along the precipice, juggling, yes. I had this idea to do just a little video, something succinct, hopefully, for me anyway, going over that classic phrase, conspiracy theorist, as I'm sure the usual suspects have heard this more than enough. But yes, that terminology, that dismissive, pejorative effect, that word sorcery, incantation to shut down thought processes, the term conspiracy theorist. And I had this idea in my head, like I said, to put together this little video to go over that very point and just hopefully, have a single set piece package of, oh, you say that term, here you go, you ought to look at this. And then lo and behold, somebody puts out an article that basically does not quite exactly that. I mean, there are articles out there already that do that kind of thing. There are videos out there already that do that kind of thing. But it just seemed a little bit synchronistic to me, or maybe I was a little bit subconsciously aware of a zeitgeist rising at the time that was talking about the very said thing, the conspiracy theorist label. But yeah, this article comes out, waiting for browser to load it. Find this on southweb.org. How to respond to an anti-conspiracy theorist. If you're looking at this kind of information and you're asking these kind of questions and you're following the rabbit down the rabbit hole at whatever level, or hopefully if you've moved beyond seeing levels and hierarchy within it, whatever point you're at on your path, you will eventually encounter somebody that you could call anti-conspiracy theorist. It's unfortunate to label and box people, but it's just to explanation. I will often talk about breaking words down, breaking open boxes, and smearing the defining lines, but I do that not to create a kind of collectivist, debilitating quagmire, as is often done with that kind of moral relativism. Now, I do it to help people burrow down, or hopefully to help people. I'm hoping I'm helping people to burrow down through the levels of complexity, of distraction, of delusion and usurping, etc., etc. So you can see where the clear, hopefully distinct truisms and reality actually manifests for you. So yeah, anyway, if you're into this kind of information, the conspiracy genre, truth movement, pick your label and box, unfortunately using a label of anti-conspiracy theorist, but it's part of the restriction of language, that we need descriptors. So we have labels and descriptors, labels as descriptors, to encapsulate a concept, idea, etc., etc. I think you get the point. So yeah, unfortunately we are using a label and a box. But anyway, this article, if you have one of these conversations with somebody, anti-conspiracy theorist, you will more than likely have heard these questions, or been asked these questions, or had these statements thrown at you. Yeah, I read through them, and there's some excellent ones there as actual responses to these statements. Let's pick a short one I'll read out for you quick. Here's a classic one. Some conspiracy theorists still believe Elvis is still alive. Yeah, or you think, like I often say jokingly, deliberately jokingly, to spark that thought process, hopefully for people to plant that seed. I will often jokingly remark that Princess Diana is living up on the Mir space station with Elvis, and pick what other famous dead person you can think of who's speculated and disappeared, blah 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 blah. Put them all on the Mir space station. You just say that, whatever. Some conspiracy theorists still believe blah blah blah. Your response: so, according to your twisted logic, because some theories are false, therefore all theories are false. I'm astonished that you could make such a stupid and offensive analogy. Is that the best you got? Yeah, I would. Obviously, you gauge the conversation to the person you're interacting with, but I would advise that you think those carefully. You think about the situation relative to the conversation before using sarcasm. You might actually just incite more anger against you, and for a lot of people, when you start presenting information to them or confronting their belief systems or shaking their foundations, you will inevitably, invariably elicit a defense response, which almost always, for a lot of people, comes out as aggression. Some people will just shut down in a submissive fashion. Some people are submissive, some people are aggressive. So by using sarcasm, you are in effect poking the hornet's nest. If you, as I've talked about before, this is the two dogs fucking effect. Are you trying to get one over on this person, or do you just want to help them on their path? Help them or don't hinder them. So in that respect, as I say, I would gauge it relative to the person you're interacting with for that conversation, but I would think carefully about using sarcasm to jibe them. But the logic of the response makes perfect sense to me, and just says it quite simply. If you think because some theories are false, therefore all theories are false, is just asinine. Anyway, read through them. Some of them will give you a bit of a giggle, and hopefully it will be ammunition in your backpack, so you can have a more reasoned discussion when people throw these ridiculous, illogical, emotive, belief-driven statements at you, or questions, etc. Yes. But I also thought, you should really have a discussion about the meaning of the words themselves, and that whole debate descends into the debate over definition of terms and the use of language, and which language are you actually speaking, all these different things. You could even go down as far as slang terms and local colloquialisms, etc., intonation, body language, eye movements, loads and loads of stuff can all add into what is the meaning that this person is trying to convey by what is the noise coming out of their mouth, language they're using. Communication is not just verbalization. This is something that one of the main reasons why I called this show Virtual Shamanizing is because you want to have a true shamanistic experience, you need to be in a hands-on, direct connection encounter with a shaman to be able to do that. You can't do it via the internet. So this is a virtual experience. Not that I am a shaman, all those usual caveats. I am not a But the meanings of words, as I say, it's an unfortunate requirement that we need labels and definitions so that we actually can have a conversation, because unfortunately we don't have telepathy mostly. But if we had a true grasp and a true ability of telepathy, then all this problem of verbalization and the restrictions of language would potentially fall away, or to a very large degree would fall away. But we're dealing with the practicalities of everyday existence. We communicate by verbalizing and various other cues that go along with it. As I said, body language, eye movement, micro emotions on the face, etc. You know, wearing a T-shirt that says "I hate oh blah blah." That's a fair bit of a communication. You know, communication is not just verbal. I don't know how many times I could repeat that, but there you go. But going through that definition, conspiracy theorist, this is something as well that for me has always been a pedantic sticking point, because of my interest in philosophy. Philosophy is really key tied to language, to communication, because you're expressing concepts from one mind to another. You're passing ideas between each other and talking about them and debating them and digesting them, etc., etc. So communication and how you communicate is very key to philosophy. So understanding language and the way people communicate is really good to do. Yeah, it's helpful. So you sort of pick words apart. So it made me quite pedantic about the use of words and what words mean and how you put them together, the use of language. And for me, a little pedantic bugbear has always been, I shouldn't say always, because I haven't always been a conspiracy theorist. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, that's the thing. I'm not a theorist. I've never actually produced a theory that has been peer-reviewed and published in any way whatsoever, even if it's in a video format and it's peer-reviewed by the commons of like button presses. I don't feel that I've ever actually done that, so therefore I'm not a theorist. Conspiracy, everybody's sort of talked about what is the meaning of conspiracy. You only need two people and you can have a conspiracy. Yeah, it's a very obese word, let's put it that way. It gets very, very large very quickly if is the biggest word in the English language, then conspiracy is a word that has a high tendency to obesity. You can begin with two people and it can end up as a grand global galactic conspiracy. Rah! Yes, but you know the good old meaning of conspiracy. Really, what would be more apt would be hypothesis. So I could say that I am a conspiracy hypothesizer, which is just, making up words. Which is what I think it might have been the anti-terrorist that said it. He's a conspiracist. So he's somebody who hypothesizes about conspiracies. Some of those hypotheses may get tested and end up being put into a theory, but a conspiracy theory would really be something that you would walk into a courtroom with and use as evidence to prove a conspiracy and actually have people arrested, etc., etc. So yeah, debating the pedantics of words and their meaning. And this is where I'll tie it back in to some of the various little points I've made as we've gone along, as I wind it up. The use of language, the manipulation of language. You are an ocean, and each existence, each point of sentience is a droplet within that ocean. Can the droplet be aware of the ocean, and can the droplet communicate with, interact with all the other droplets? Communication is key to how we communicate, helps to a very great degree to define the reality of the world we are experiencing together. And to reiterate once more, communication is not just verbal. There are so many layers to it. It's a very big subject, but vital and key, I feel. The manipulation of language, the manipulation, control, co-opting, etc., of communication, avenues of communication. Our use of the internet, enables us to communicate in bigger, broader groups, breaking down barriers between cultures and peoples and stereotypes, etc., which is all great as far as I'm concerned towards people's evolution, all of us. But it gives them great opportunity to control how you communicate, and that's what they've been doing so much of recently, cracking down on that communication. And as I say, I wondered whether, when I saw this article come up, I thought, yes, has there been a meme again popping up about conspiracy theorist and that usual pejorative throwing around of that definition, that terminology, that dismissive incantation. And it is that incanting that winds me into what I was alluding to earlier with talking about the ocean, that you are the vessel on that they attempt to enact upon you or usurp upon you this paper-based power system that disconnects you from that original source, that original ocean that you are part of, that you are sailing upon. By controlling that communication, they control your thoughts. It's fairly evident fact, I feel. I use the word fact carefully because I'm a philosophy student. I know how semantic it can get. But it is fairly evident that people with the more limited your vocabulary, the more limiting it is upon the complexity of the concepts that you can play with in your head. It's difficult to try and explain to somebody toilet paper if they don't even have a concept of a flushing toilet. Why would you be using this stuff? Where did it come from? How do you make it? It makes no sense. What are you doing? You just use a leaf. But I think you get the point. By controlling language, you control thought. They take those thoughts, or they attempt to take those thoughts from you, and they encapture them, they inscribe them, they ensorcel them onto pieces of paper. They try to instantiate them into existential existence, into empirical existence, so that then they can have ownership over it. This to the nth degree leads to slavery, leads to the ownership of each other. It does also open up that massive can of worms of these intellectual property rights, etc. But I just wanted to go over that with a more esoteric view, which was why, as I say, I mentioned the ocean, the Admiralty Law, the vessel of spirit, whether you look at it from a theist point of view or an atheist point of view. You are the singularity point that is experiencing. You are the perception that is experiencing, and other perceptions out there want to take that power and control it so they can control you and claim ownership of you. Old paper paradigm trickery. One more link I'll drop in the chat room. This was video upload from Steve to Goose, which I watched this afternoon, and I thought, there you go again. Either we're dancing on the edge of the zeitgeist ocean that is going around in general conversation, etc. at the moment. No, I've already linked that one. Multitask fail again. Copy, paste. Or there is definitely a meme sort of prodding at people's awareness at the moment. Needs to caught both of us. But yeah, he uploaded this little vlog called "We're Foreign to Our Own Language, Words Don't Translate." Find it on his channel, Steve Turgoose, on YouTube. He says, very similar to as I've just said now, about the use of language and the control of language, and how communication can be manipulated, and how that manipulation is, not helpful for any of us. But yes, I'm going to wind it up. I'm going to play an audio bit and one more audio track, one more song, well, with the usual one at the end, so a couple of songs, audio track and a couple of songs. This audio piece is from Storm Cloud's Gathering. He uploaded this a few days ago. I thought it was nicely done. You might not agree with every point of it, but just take it for what it is. I appreciate it. I think it says it quite succinctly. Yes, I will be back again next week to rant and ramble and with some yogurt in your face. Hopefully you may have found something helpful, some of the links, etc. And yes, please bear with the renovations on the website. There's only a handful of people that are beavering away at it, and they're working bloody hard at doing what they're doing, trying to make it as functional as possible, and as to get what we want out of it as best as we can. I'm saying we, I've not done anything really to help other than stress testing it here and there. But yes, thank you to the guys who are working hard on that. Please bear with it. It will be up again as soon as they can. Take care, folks. Keep talking, keep conversing, keep exploring, keep expanding, keep communicating, keep evolving.
Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. This concept was established by Einstein's equation E = mc squared, and has been confirmed by numerous experiments. Therefore, energy has always existed and will always exist. This means that our current concept of time, where everything has a beginning and an end, is false. If we follow this line of reasoning, it should be obvious that any scientific theory that describes the origins of the universe is not actually describing the origin of energy, but rather of one particular expression of that energy. Science traces the origins of the universe to a timeless and motionless state called the singularity. Since the singularity is timeless, it cannot be talked about as before or after anything. If something exists but is not before or after anything, then it is now. Therefore, the singularity is now. Again, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. Therefore, all of the energy in existence is present in a singularity. Time and space are one fabric. You cannot have one without the other. This is a basic premise of modern physics. There is no time in the singularity, therefore there is no space in the singularity. Without space and time, there can be no separation or individuation. Therefore, energy cannot be separated from the singularity. It is one entity, a unified monolithic field with no boundaries, and it cannot be broken up or divided in any way. This is the eternal and omnipresent root of the universe. This is the essence of what we are. And yet the relative universe exists. Separation and individuation exist. How do we reconcile this? How can two people sit down and have a conversation if they are both expressions of the same indivisible field of energy? A good way to conceptualize this is to use the metaphor of a video game on your computer. The characters in the game are all running on the same hardware. Their spatial separation is illusory, and their time-based interactions are expressions of pre-existing possibilities within this framework. It is the encoding of time that creates the possibility of interaction both in a video game and in the real world. In the video game, that code of time is stored with all the probabilities and possible outcomes coexisting on a disk. In the real world, the code of time with all the probabilities and possible outcomes resides in the singularity. This does not imply that our lives are predetermined and free choice is impossible. All probabilities, all possible outcomes coexist in one moment. But in each moment, we choose from those probabilities, and our lives are expressions of those choices. These choices aren't always rational or constructive, but this is due largely to a distorted view of who we are. If rather than viewing ourselves as strictly isolated individuals at odds with the outside world, we viewed ourselves as part of a single unified field of existence, how might that change the way we interact? How would we treat others if we understood that everything we do to them, we are actually doing to ourselves? Think about it. If you'd like more content like this, please subscribe to this channel, Stormclouds Gathering, on YouTube. For updates and bonus content, follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/StormcloudsGathering, on Twitter at Collapse Updates, and our website, stormcloudsgathering.com.